Institute of Architects. It's number 9 on the AIA's top 10 list. The most important pieces of architecture in the United States. Trinity Church, number 9. Now, the reason we say Boston is one of the oldest cities in the country is because we were settled in 1630. That's when the Puritans arrived here. The Puritans did not leave their homes in England by choice. They were fleeing religious persecution. They didn't like the Church of the King. And, if you lived in England in the 1600s, you didn't get to decide where or if you were going to church on Sunday. All is the first thing we created, the Boston Public Garden, dedicated 1837. Everything going back behind us till you get to Kenmore Square, that's 10 blocks behind us right now, is man-made land. We've been riding on a layer of about 20 feet of gravel that was dumped into the river. 1830s through the 1890s, we were filling and building in the Back Bay. If you look out in front of us here, the land that's up in front of us now, that's the backside of Boston Common. That's not man-made land. Boston Common is a small part of that little 1.5 square mile peninsula that the Puritans found. Early 1800s, for some of the wealthiest families in the city, you will still find some of the wealthiest people in Boston living on Beacon Hill. Homes up here sell for millions of dollars. This is where most of us truck drivers live. And he decided he wanted to pursue a career in politics. And there was an open congressional seat to represent this district, but at the time, he was living in West Palm Beach, Florida. So he wanted to get an address here in this district before he would run to represent it, so he gets an apartment. 122 Bowden Street, ran for the congressional seat, and he won the election. Went on to become the 35th President of the United States.
Wow.
John Kennedy.
John Kennedy lived there, Kate.
John Kennedy kept that apartment at 122 Bowden, even while he was president. Still had the apartment here in Boston. Why do you think John Kennedy kept an apartment here in Boston while he was president of the United States?
I think we know.
A lot of people have ideas about that. But John Kennedy, it's the same reason why President Obama kept his place in Chicago. It's why W kept the ranch down in Crawford, Texas. Even though we all know the President of the United States lives in the White House, there's not a single U.S. president who will ever actually say that that is their official residence. Because if you're the president of this country and you say your official residence is in the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., you'll get one less vote on Election Day. So if you live in Washington, you can't vote. People who live in Washington, D.C. don't get to vote in federal elections. So U.S. presidents always keep an address outside of Washington. Then when it's time for them to vote, they go to where they say their official residence is, and that's where they cast their vote. Red Sox heading out on a road trip now. They got 14 games on the road. You're going to see the widest cable-stayed bridge in the world. Over to the right, it's the Leonard P. Zakum Bunker Hill Memorial Bridge. 10 lanes crossing over the mouth of the Charles River. We're very close. It's almost time for splashdown, gang. You're going to see the Charles River coming up on the right. Now what we want to do is we want to get across the river. We want to get over to the Cambridge side. That's where our launch ramp is. In order for us to get across the river, first we have to negotiate Leverett Circle.
Any thoughts, Uncle Jim?
The name on the front of his hook, it says Penelope Crew, but we all call that one Pepto. What's that? I don't know. Thursday's the season opener. Alright. So the moment of truth.
Yeah, make sure your hair is in place.
You cannot just drive the duck directly into the river. It is critical. Before you go in the water, you must first come to a complete stop. Then I'm going to pull up on this big lever on the floor up here. When I do that, all 6 wheels will explode off the sides of the duck. There'll be a huge cloud of smoke. We'll fly up in the air, and hopefully we land in the river.
You had to pay extra for that?
No, the wheels didn't flop on. Actually, we're going to keep the wheels. All I did was I turned on the propeller. So I'm going to take my foot off the brake, and blow the horn. Here it comes. Splash down into the Charles. Now that is how you launch a duck. I know it's a lot of fun, but don't ever try this in your own car. So to the left, the rookie taking a little cruise in the river. A few more ducks coming up behind us. That's about it. This is typical for a weekday. You generally don't see much traffic on the Charles Monday through Friday. But weekends, it can get really crowded out here. You go out on a Saturday or a Sunday, you see people in power boats, people rowing, people sailing. Yeah, we got a two-person kayak down there. I said there were some sailors out too, a little bit further upstream. So I like it when the river's quiet. Captain Catherine, give her a round of applause. Alright, so it's real easy. All you gotta do is put your hands on the wheel, and that's it. You are driving the duck. Have you ever driven a boat before? First time? Pretty easy. You know, you're not just driving a boat, you're also driving a floating 2.5-ton Army truck right now. How old are you? 5.5. Okay, so the tallest buildings in New England are built in a river. Yeah, this is community boating's fleet sailing around here now. Community boating, been teaching kids how to sail since 1939. Over on the Cambridge side of the Charles, you look to the right, you'll be looking at the campus of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
That's where that Noam Chomsky's a professor.
MIT, running right along the Cambridge shoreline. I'd show you some of Harvard if you see it. But you really can't see much of Harvard's campus from here. You can see the Harvard Bridge, next bridge upstream. Left end of the Harvard Bridge, you'll see the Citgo sign with a big red triangle on it. That's the end of the Back Bay neighborhood. A little bit to the left of the Citgo sign is Faneuil Park, home of the Boston Red Sox, oldest Major League ballpark in use in America today. First Major League ball game at Fenway, the Boston Red Sox defeated the New York Yankees. Same week the Titanic set its end. April 1912. Of course, the Red Sox defeated the Yankees at Faneuil Park last night, too. It was a nice win for Red Sox. The Boston side of the river is all parkland. This park in front of us is called the Esplanade. The Esplanade is where you'll find the hatch shell. And you can see it over to the right. The big brown dome. The side of the dome that's facing the city is open. So the flick of a switch. The wheel's spinning again. We'll head over to the ramp now. When we get in close, first thing that's going to hit the bottom will be the two front tires. I got them turning. They'll start pulling us out. Until we get into shallow water, the propeller's going to do all the work pushing us around. Pulling us out. Here comes the back wheels. And there it is. It's another successful duck cruise on the Charles River. Bunker Hill Monument, 221-foot tall granite obelisk. You can climb up inside the thing to the top. Just be ready for a good climb. If you want to look out the window at the top, you got to go up 294 steps to get there. It's worth it though. It's a nice view. Some traffic coming or going at Logan Airport on the other side of the harbor. Big sailboat coming in, I can see. Pretty quiet in the harbor right now.
back to the left, and
Now, if you look over to the right, this is the dam that's separating the harbor from the river, and you can see the lock system that allows boats to travel between the two bodies of water.
down there somewhere. Oh, you're right in there. Get the Union Bar. That's where Bill Van.
Boston City Hall is on the right. Faneuil Hall is coming up on our left. Faneuil Hall is a gift to the people of Boston from Peter Faneuil.
That's it today.
Typically, what would happen after Sam Adams gave a speech back there at the old State House? This is where the royal governor governed the colony of Massachusetts from. This is where the first bloodshed of the American Revolution took place. March 5th, 1770, in front of us here, an event that would come to be known as the Boston Massacre. Tea kettle was built as the sign for the Oriental Tea Company. Oriental Tea is long gone. They've been gone for more than 100 years, but their sign is still hanging around Starbucks, has it? Sam's just one of the three guys who signed the Declaration of Independence. Is buried here. You got Sam, Robert Treat Paine, and John Hancock. Their final resting places. The old Granary burying ground. Paul Revere is buried over here. Jimmy Otis. James Otis is the man who said, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." Buried at the old Granary. You know what happened to Jimmy Otis? On the other side of the common a little bit earlier. This has been public land since 1634. It's where the people of Boston used to bring their livestock to graze. The local volunteer militia did their training. And Boston Common is where people were brought for public punishment. If you violated Puritan law, you could find yourself locked in the stocks on Boston Common. The stocks, there was a big wooden bar you had to kind of lean over, and they locked this thing across the back of your neck and your wrists, so it was just your head and your two hands sticking out one side. And they just kind of leave you out there on display like that. Some of the crimes the Puritans would put people in the stocks for were things like falling asleep in church. So that is a little disappointing when you get inside. Nobody actually knows
Dat is echt een tv-serie waarbij in de jaren 70, 80, 90.
Hij is dol, ja.
Net zoals Friends, ja. En dat café er altijd op de buitenkant.
Newbury is where you'll find places like Versace, Armani, Burberry, Brooks Brothers, Cartier, True Value Hardware, Nike Town, Newbury Comics. Newbury Street's really neat because on this one street you have the real, high-end designer boutiques, but they're mixed in with places like neighborhood hardware store, great comic book shop. If you go exploring out here in the Back Bay, this is one of the few parts of the city. It's very easy to find your way around. The streets in the Back Bay are arranged in a grid pattern, and the cross streets on the grid are laid out in alphabetical order. First street of the Back Bay is Arlington. Next block down is Berkeley. And to that already. Remember, it's the tallest building in New England. We're going to drive right up to the bottom of it this time. You can see it out in front of us now. There is a local man. His name is Paul Tavilla. Paul got himself into the Guinness Book of World Records by standing on the sidewalk at the bottom of the Hancock Tower, looking up and catching a grape in his mouth that was dropped to him from the roof. At 783 feet. He survived.
En iemand boven de toren gooide een druif beneden. En die heeft onderaan de toren hier net zien.
If you have a camera, you might want to get it ready here. Look out the left side of the duck. Look into the first floor of the Hancock Tower. You are going to see a beautiful group of people over here. You might want to get their picture. Look to the left and tell me.
Oh, it's us. How about that?
There we are, crowd. Very friendly. If you wave, they always wave back. Hey, the Tipton Hotel coming up on the left. This is where Zach and Cody used to live before they went out to sea.
Where you going to? To the right.
There's Mr. Mosby.
You went to the right, Kate.
Alright, we're coming on to Huntington Avenue now. This is the street we started out on. We're almost back. Quarters right up in front of us.